The acquisition of Jalen Ramsey and others has me bullish on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Julian Council might think differently. We'll talk about it here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Barbershop Edition, one of two shows here on Locked On NFL Daily. And I have Julian Council from Locked On Panthers here with me, and we're going to navigate ourselves right up through today's show. It's going to lead you into, hopefully, the enthusiasm you need for the season that is coming this year. It's a daily podcast, and all we do is go around the league and get the clips from all of the local experts and give you the pulse of what's going on with all the teams. So we'll get to that today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you, and shout out to the everydayers for joining us here every day. It is your team every day, as we say. We appreciate you, and if you're new, we'll give you a reason to come back. Here's what Julian and I are going to go through. We'll go to the end first. The Eagles and the Cowboys, an early look at two teams. One of them has been a hot mess this offseason, but we'll go through that. The NFC North, once again, coming into this season, is the division that everyone thinks will be the most competitive, and the floor is being raised by the Bears, but we got the Packers obviously at the very, very top. We'll discuss that, and we'll start here at the very top. Jalen Ramsey, DK Metcalf, and need we not say Aaron Rodgers are three new additions to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am bullish on them. Julian Council, go ahead and let me have it, because you know we went through this Aaron Rodgers thing last year.
Well, the difference is it's Pittsburgh, and last year it was the Jets. So, you know, if it's the Jets, I'm off of that. But if it's Pittsburgh, in particular, the Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to win at least 9 games. So there is a chance that this works out. And with the addition of Jalen Ramsey, who still is excellent there in the secondary, and Aaron Rodgers coming over for at least 1 year to stabilize quarterback position, again, for 1 year, I got Pittsburgh having a chance in that division, even though I still like Baltimore a whole lot more. In Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson, that got figured out, but we'll see defensively what they have this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to go to the Locked On Steelers, where Chris Carter and his guests actually talked about Pittsburgh, and then we'll peel through some of the layers real quick of why I really do believe that they're a good team.
And so when you put such a huge kind of big investment in Jalen Ramsey and then Brandon Echols, and then even drafting Dante Kent as another kind of draft pick, right? When you make a really a 3-tiered investment in that, plus you keep Beanie Bishop, you say this position is something that we are not going to mess around with anymore. And that's because it has become one of the near premium positions on defenses nowadays. You look at guys like Brian Branch, Kyle Hamilton, Trent McDuffie, just game-changing players that play on the nickel. They shape defenses. And so that's the type of talents you get here. And so that is exactly what the Steelers did when they got Jalen Ramsey.
All right, here's my take on Pittsburgh. They know who they are. Pittsburgh is a team that does not have to look in the mirror to see what their face looks like every day. And when you know who you are, you know exactly how to go and find what you need. See, they always invest in their offensive and defensive lines. They always invest in those positions, even when it doesn't seem like they need them. And then they use free agency to cherry pick the things that they need to help the team get better now. And it's easier to do that because you're doing it with proven people. Jalen Ramsey, DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers in their system. Those are great additions to things that they specifically needed to improve, and they didn't have to do it with a draft pick. They did it with a proven player. I love Pittsburgh's chances because of their trenches and because they are just who they are.
Yeah, it's a line of scrimmage game. No one can forget about that. Obviously, the quarterback is very important, but if you can't protect the quarterback, it doesn't matter. And if you can't get the quarterback the ball back, it also doesn't really matter who's back there. And Pittsburgh has done a good job of that in the past. And I like the addition of Derek Harmon, the guy out of Oregon. He's injured right now. We'll see how long he's going to be out for Pittsburgh with that knee injury that he actually suffered in their preseason finale against the Panthers. So that's one concern for them heading into the season, but they still have TJ Watt, they still have Cam Hayward, and of course they've added Jalen Ramsey and some other key pieces there into the secondary. So I'm not too concerned about what that defense is going to look like throughout the season. I'm still very curious what they're going to look like offensively, because it's nice to have DK Metcalf. I just wonder how many more offensive like playmakers they have that can really be game breakers for them. That's just one key question I have for them offensively. And then how good can Aaron Rodgers really be? Because he was kind of solid there at the end of last season for the Jets. It still was, the Jets, so it didn't really matter what he was doing. But in Pittsburgh, it will matter. So yeah, I can see them absolutely being a wild card contender. I can't really see them being a true division title contender, considering just, I think, how many levels better Baltimore is than Pittsburgh heading into the year.
No doubt about it. And that's been their speed bump and their ingrown toenail, Baltimore and Pittsburgh going back and forth for, it seems like, forever now. One of the teams that can make a Pittsburgh Green Bay Super Bowl would really be nostalgic. And I know I'm jumping way ahead of it now, but Green Bay has hopes that they can get back to that level. And one of the reasons the Micah Parsons trade, they had a pretty good team before that. But I think all of this comes down to how good Jordan Love is and how good he is. And I think there's a big gap in the feelings about that around the National Football League. Here's my man, Peter Bukowski.
Another survey of NFL coaches and evaluators that say Jordan Love is not a top 10 quarterback. Jordan Love was 14th this time last year. He is 13th this year. And it was somewhat surprising. It was more surprising with the names that were ahead of him. Dak Prescott immediately ahead of him after a pretty disastrous season last year. Baker Mayfield ahead of him. CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts. This is, I think, what happened. There was a lot of genuine excitement about Jordan Love in the league and in the media going into last season. And then Love didn't take that step forward. And what it ends up being in terms of perception is that he took a step back, that he regressed. When really what he did not move forward in the way that we thought. That feels like a loss. Even though if you look at the efficiency numbers, he was better. He missed 3 games. If you extrapolate out, like, touchdowns would have been the exact same. He actually improved how often he threw touchdowns as a percentage of his attempts in 2024. So, and he was hurt. Remember, he was hurt. And
that's the key. He was hurt. Seems like he's always hurt. Or his wide receivers are always hurt. Is this a health issue with him, an availability issue that has people thinking like that? Or does it seem like there's some things in his game that just, to me, when I watch him play, there are 3 or 4 things he does, and I go, God, he was almost there, and he does these boneheaded things. I may be reading this wrong, but I think he is the one quarterback that has a really, really good team that it is really on him whether or not they make it or not.
I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think he's a good player. Like, I think it's very clear that he is a good player for Green Bay. And like week 1 in Sao Paulo, he gets hurt. And I think that kind of just hurt his trajectory from that point in time. And we don't know just how significant everything he was dealing with last year was. Like, yeah, okay, he missed only a couple of games and comes back. But like, how compromised is he in the pocket and just as far as his confidence as a player with whatever he was dealing with throughout the season? So I think he's still somebody who Green Bay can count on. But here's the thing, it's a team game. And when you add someone like Micah Parsons to that team game, like that only helps that team be much better than they were a year prior. So adding that kind of element, especially like as far as a pass rusher goes, like they didn't have anybody of that caliber, anything close to that on their team until a week ago when Jerry made that crazy decision for the Cowboys and for that organization as a whole. So I like Jordan Love. The receivers he's had have been young. Yes, they've been banged up, but they have grown together the last couple of seasons. And I think that this is only the next step now. And I would look at Green Bay as the favorite in that division, considering all the change in Detroit and the Bears. I'm not really convinced about that. We've never seen J.J. McCarthy play in the NFL. So if we're just looking at all the situations right now, it feels like to me like Green Bay has the least amount of questions and a great head coach in Matt LaFleur, a good quarterback in Jordan Love, and quite possibly the best player in the National Football League in Micah Parsons.
You're right about that. And speaking of Green Bay, they got a tough division, man. And they're still chasing another team at the very top. We'll talk about the Detroit Lions and then the upstart Bears who are raising the floor of that team. And we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in a stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, man, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you'd like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. All right, here's what you need to do. If you're ready to play, you should be. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Rolling along here with my main man, Julian Council, as we are discussing the National Football League. We briefly mentioned those Green Bay Packers. They got some competition. Competition should come from the Detroit Lions, who had a bunch of injuries, mostly on the defensive side. Now they're healthy, but their offensive line still leaves a little bit to be desired and questions. I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's just that it's not a sure thing as it was in the past. Listen to my man, Matt Derry.
This team will only go as far as this offensive line takes them. Yes, they've got an excellent quarterback, all right? They've got as good a wide receiver as there is in the league. They got a budding superstar at the other wide receiver. They got good depth at wideout. We've talked about Isaac Tesla and how good he looks in the preseason. Their tight end is all world and Sam Laporta. All right, their running backs could be the best tandem in the game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And you know, I love me some Craig Reynolds. Come on, Craig. But the O-line's got to be healthy, and these guys got to have time in the next month to work together.
I had to play that again just to hear Matt Derry say, come on, Craig. But no, I think Detroit's a very, very good team. I wouldn't necessarily say that the quarterback is excellent and the tight end is all world, but he does have a point. They have weapons galore, and they still do have Penei Sewell, who, if you want to argue with somebody like Lou DiBiase, will tell you Lane Johnson is the best. I think you're picking hairs there. I think they have a good foundation with Decker also to keep that offensive line. I don't think there's going to be a problem for him this year.
No, that would be the least of my concerns as it pertains to the Detroit Lions this season, is their offensive line. And kind of, as long as you have an offensive line coach as your head coach, not too concerned about that unit overall. And they still have plenty of talent. I think really what the concern would be is just, what does this offense look like without Ben Johnson? And yes, obviously the offensive line is a piece of that. They need to be healthy. They need to be able to perform still at the level they've been performing over the last couple of years, as they were the 1 seed last year and made it to the title game the year prior. Like, I am just very interested in seeing what Jared Goff does without a Sean McVay and without a Ben Johnson, because Sean McVay dumped him for Matthew Stafford, and Ben Johnson has now moved on for an opportunity in Chicago to be a head coach with Caleb Williams, who I imagine if he didn't believe in Caleb, he would not have taken that job with the Bears. So we'll see like who the real Jared Goff is. Obviously, he's done a great job to resurrect his career up there in Detroit. He's beloved now, and I had a lot of concerns. I think a lot of people did, and probably the expectation was he'd be the starter there for a year, and then they'd move on. But that was not the plan that Detroit had for him very clearly. And they made that known from day one that they believed in Jared Goff. And a lot of teams can say that, they can lie to us, but that was true. So I am really interested in how he's able to play and what his role will be. And I mean, obviously he's a quarterback, but how big of a role he can play in this team's success this upcoming season.
Yeah, me too. And the one thing I will tell you is, in the games that they lost, especially in the playoffs against Washington, yeah, their defense gave up a lot of points, right? But Jared Goff also helped them give up a lot of points with untimely turnovers and interceptions. And then the games that they lost in the regular season, they lost in the same way. I think if they get to the point where they need him to score 38 points, that's when they get into trouble. Because if they can't manage that and just keep him in that little box that he needs to stay in, I don't think he can deliver. One of the other reasons the NFC North is very, very good. And I know we just talked about the Packers and didn't mention Micah Parsons. We've mentioned that every day for the last 2 weeks, is the Bears. I think the Bears are going to be better. You mentioned the aforementioned Ben Johnson. That's where he is now. They're going to be better. But now they've gotten hit with the injury bug in a position that might make them have to throw it a little bit more than they want to in the secondary. Listen to Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears.
We know Jalen Johnson just got activated off the non-football injury list, but they're not sure if he's going to be ready for week one. Kyler Gordon has been dealing with injury. Josh Blackwell, one of the backup cornerbacks, has missed the last handful of weeks with injury. They're a little bit banged up at corner, and I think a little bit undermanned at safety. And there's some good players out there at both spots that I think would be worth at least checking in on and seeing if they might be the right fit for what Dennis Allen wants on this defense.
Maybe Stephon Gilmore. I don't think nobody signed him yet, but the Bears are in that position, man, where not really where the Lions were in a vacuum. But if you pay attention to it, they're right there trying to come out and contend. And now they get all of these injuries at one spot. And it's a spot other than the offensive line. I think when you have a secondary that you have to go into your depth too much, it will really, really make your whole team and the concept of who you are change a lot.
Nah, not to me. If you can win up front, who cares who's back there? That's my kind of thing. The best friend of a secondary is having a front four that can actually win. So if they get hung out, if you have a bad front four and they never get pressure, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is because those guys aren't going to be able to cover for 4 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a concern because you don't want to start the season off against the Vikings who have Jordan Jefferson and then Adam Thielen's out back home in Minnesota, and they've had their own receiver questions. So that's actually kind of an interesting matchup to start off the season on Monday Night Football where a banged-up secondary is going up against a banged-up wide receiver room, but a wide receiver room that has the best receiver in the NFL, arguably. Argue amongst yourselves, Bengals and Vikings fans. I don't really want to do that. And then Adam Thielen's now back there. So that's an interesting matchup. But yeah, they can't really afford to be dealing with this kind of stuff. And it is always interesting how it's week one and you look across the league and plenty of teams are banged up. And you would think heading into the season that this would be the healthiest that you're going to be all year. Maybe it is, but every year there's always questions like, is this guy going to be ready for week one? Whether it's a training camp, a preseason injury, or something lingering from last season towards the tail end. But looking at Chicago, you got Minnesota Monday night, Detroit on the road the next Sunday, and then Dallas at home after that. So not any way to kind of tiptoe into this season. They're going to get right to it. I bet they wish they had the Raiders week one. And in that game, even on the road, probably won't be a gimme either. So we're going to learn a lot about Ben Johnson, these Chicago Bears, right off the bat here in 2025.
You ain't got to wait. You do not have to wait. And they're going to jump right into the fire. Speaking of the fire, this time next week, man, we'll be talking about games that have been played, right? We'll be going over games and things that we saw from week one. But that doesn't mean you got to wait 6 days. You only got to wait 3 more days, and you're going to get Eagles and Cowboys, a Cowboys team that has had not the quietest offseason, and the Eagles that have had a very quiet offseason because they ain't got to say nothing because they got a trophy. We're going to review that game in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here, and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their current championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy Football on Yahoo. I'm doing that, man, for like the 20th time, and I am a veteran at it, but if you're not, this is the place to be, even if it's your first or your millionth league. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft, with friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. And today's show is sponsored by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all the financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I love it because it puts me and my wife on the same page with our financials, and we can do it all in one place, and that is Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities like this slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL.
Right.
All right, Julian Council, Eagles and Cowboys. First, let's talk about the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles because, well, they're the Super Bowl champion and they come first regardless of what the headlines say. Pretty quiet offseason. They need some players that were young guys last year to now step up and be leaders. That might be the easy part because both Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell actually played like veterans last year. But now you're going to need the role players, new role players, to step up into the role that those young rookies did last year. And that may be even a bigger challenge because it's the unknown. Listen to my man Lou DiBiase talk about guys that have to step up for Philly to close those gaps a little bit.
All right, it's game week. The Philadelphia Eagles kick off the 2025 season this Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys. My first initial thought, all eyes are on Jalix Hunt, Moro Ujoma, Jahad Campbell, and Adoree Jackson. Why? They are filling the important roles left by starters from the 2024 defense. Do these guys need to be stars in 2025 for the Eagles to be Super Bowl contenders? No. But you can't win in spite of these new role players on defense, or else you have a 2023-2018 situation on their hands. These guys need to at least get to a certain floor to replace Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, Nakobe Dean in the short term. I think these guys have, honestly, an even higher ceiling than those players, but the floor is a little bit lower right now because of the inexperience. I think those four players are key against Dallas.
It's a good problem to have. A good problem to have is you got all of these really, really good players, and you know that they're there, the Saquon Barkleys and A.J. Browns and Jalen Hurts of the world. And all you need is the glue guys to just do their job. But when your goal is to win a championship, you realize how close you are to not being able to do that when those little things don't happen.
Well, that's the nature of the NFL, that you're not going to be able to keep guys around not for long, as they say. That's what the NFL is. And I mean, Philadelphia, I think overall, they'll still be a very good football team because they're very good up front. And we saw them be able to win that Super Bowl and have Patrick Mahomes in hell for that whole game because of the pressure they're able to get on him. So obviously losing guys like Josh Sweat, it's unfortunate, but what has Philly been able to do better than really anybody else in the league? It's draft and develop. And I think that they're going to show you how they're being able to do that game with Cooper DeJean, who had an interception in that Super Bowl. Quinyon Marshall, who was a guy who they drafted in the first round last year. Like, this is just the nature of the league. Like, you're going to lose guys, and then or Mitchell, rather. Sorry, not Marshall, but you're going to lose guys. And then when you bring in some of the new guys and you have them sit out for a year basically to learn and develop, like, they have to step up and make it known that they are the right guys that you brought in. So yeah, like that, I think Philadelphia will be fine, but yeah, that's certainly something to look at going into Thursday night. AJ Brown, his status, he said he's going to play. So that's obviously important for the passing game as they try to get back to where they were a year ago. So yeah, I mean, going to be a good game, hopefully on Thursday.
Yeah, hopefully it will. I think Dallas will step up and play a very, very competitive game because guys have a chip on their shoulder. I was wondering, okay, you let Micah go. What are CD and Dak going to do the next day that they come into the building. You get a little bit of that team feel back when Dallas gives DaRon Bland 4 years, $92 million. Good player, but that's a lot of money. But it's Jerry rewarding a dude that wasn't very heralded coming into the team, but rewarding a guy, as he should, that broke the NFL record for pick sixes. The thing is, though, is I heard he gives up a lot of touchdowns at the same time because he takes those risks. But there's a secondary thing that happened here. You kind of win back the locker room a little bit when you give a player who's like that some money, even though you kind of goofed up in this whole trade that made you look silly. Here's Landon McCool talking about DaRon Bland.
The Dallas Cowboys have extended star cornerback DaRon Bland to a 4-year, $92 million deal. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast and the Pick Six King, who just a few years ago broke the all-time in-season record for pick sixes, has been extended with the Dallas Cowboys for a deal that's reported to be 4 years, $92 million, about $23 million a year, which would make him around the 7th highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Some of those numbers are still coming in. I do think it's interesting that the timing of this, right? Obviously, the Micah Parsons situation that went down last week, it did free up a lot of cap space for the Cowboys. And the DaRon Bland deal was one of the few deals that actually was going to have the cap go up simply because he was on a 5th-round deal. So any deal that he made was going to be an increase in his salary for this year. For more on this, make sure you guys check us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
Two things can be true at the same time. This was a good signing, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that you let a generational player get away.
Yeah. Oh man. When I saw that last week that he traded away Micah Parsons, like I never even considered like that was actually going to happen. And I had seen, I guess, earlier in the week that Green Bay was a team that was very interested. And I was like, okay, if that does happen, then like great for Green Bay. But knowing Dallas's and Green Bay's history, like are they really going to send him to another team within the conference? I mean, a team that just whacked your ass 2 years ago in the playoffs. Like, and come on, man. That's just wild that there's just, I get they're getting a great return. And we've seen how a lot of times in these teams give up a lot for those players. They don't end up doing anything. I don't think this is like Chicago with the Khalil Mack trade because they didn't have a quarterback at that point in time. God bless Mitch Trubisky, but like it wasn't going to happen with Mitch ever, or Mitchell, whatever they want to call him when he was in the league. Looking at Green Bay, far better situation because they actually have a coach. No offense to Matt Nagy, who's going to probably fail upward to that Chiefs job whenever Andy Reid retires. Actual offense, actually. But it's kind of crazy that Jerry did this, and I guess he found the money in the couch cushions, but it seemed like there was just irreconcilable differences at the point in time with Jerry and with Micah Parsons, and that negotiation that went sour to where he had no choice. He felt like then to move him on to Green Bay. And DaRon Bland, good player, that's awesome, but he's a corner, and corners don't change the game in the same manner as a guy like a Micah Parsons does. So it's still a premium position, but he's not even top corner on the team. Whatever. Best of luck to Jerry and the Cowboys.
Bro, I've gone through this and tried to tell some fans, imagine the best player in the history of your franchise defensively. And you know what? People will say, wait, man, Dallas got Bob Lilly and Randy. What? Listen to me. They got Deion Sanders. He was there for a cup of coffee. The best player that they have drafted on the defensive side of the ball. This would be like the Carolina Panthers not getting to a second contract with Julius Peppers or Luke Kuechly.
Well, Julius Peppers did leave to go to Chicago.
Yeah, did he do it? Did he get a second deal though? Did he get at least a second contract?
It's been so long, but I do remember Julius leaving, and it was a big deal because obviously he's from Bailey, North Carolina, went to Carolina. Hold on, I'm going on Spot Track right now, trying to remember looking at his old contracts,
because I think he made the Hall of Fame before he left.
Yeah,
Carolina.
no,
you don't really do that.
So he was on the rookie deal. So it says his rookie deal was 7 years, which I guess things have obviously changed.
Mm-hmm.
He got franchise tagged. So no, his second deal was in Chicago.
But he gave you the years though. There were enough years that he would go into Canton as a Panther.
Which he did. Yeah. And Yeah, then he went. Yeah, because he left to go to Chicago because he wanted to get out of North Carolina, which totally makes sense.
Yeah, I totally get it. I love North Carolina. Though. I ain't just saying that because you here. I like North Carolina.
Well, he's from a small town in Eastern
Yeah.
North Carolina. Went to small college town. Then he got drafted to the team in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I've always been a big advocate. No matter what you do, you got to get away from home and leave for a little bit to see what else is out there. And he came back home, and now he lives in Miami.
Like everybody wants to live in Miami, right? Except during hurricane season. All right, man. Great show today. Obviously, the football. This is the week, man. The week that we have been all waiting for. I want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Every division winner, breakout star, and Super Bowl contender. An 8-episode series with everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, check out that newsletter, man. Our newsletter is something else. We work real hard on that at lockedonpodcast.com/newsletter. Make sure you check that out. Julian Council, by the time we get back together next week, we'll have real results that matter in the win-loss column. Yeah, thank God. We kind of made it, right? You know, me and you have these talks all the time about how we have to drag ourselves to the gate as this football season gets going. But we are finally here. We thank you for spending 30 minutes with us each and every day here on Locked On NFL. It is not taken for granted, and we'll see you next time.